We invented the chip in America. We invented the chip in America. Then we got lazy. Federal investment helped reduce the cost of creating a market in the entire industry that America led. As a result, over 30 years ago, America produced 30% of all the chips in the world. Then something happened. American manufacturing, the backbone of our economy, got hollowed out. Companies began to move jobs overseas instead of products overseas because it was cheaper for them. That's why it happened. I come from the corporate capital of the world. There are more corporations incorporated in Delaware than every other state in the union combined. And guess what? A lot of businesses got greedy. Go to the cheap labor overseas. Well, now we're sending good products overseas made by first-class labor. Folks, the result, today we're down to producing only 10% of the world's chips despite leading the world in research and design of new chip technology. Why does this matter? I had a long meeting with Xi Jinping at the G20. We have met for over 80 hours over the last 10 years. We know each other well. And he's a little upset that we're deciding we're going to once again be, and so are European friends. They're talking about the supply chain. We're going to be the supply chain. The difference is going to be we're going to make that supply chain available to the rest of the world, but we're not going to be held hostage anymore. I mean it. We saw it during the pandemic when overseas factories that make these chips shut down because of the pandemic. The global economy comes to a halt, driving up costs for families. In fact, 1/3 of the core inflation last year is because of the price of automobiles. They couldn't get the computer chips, so they couldn't make the automobiles, so the price of the few automobiles that are being made went way up. They had to shut down. Workers in the shop floor got laid off. Prices went up because cars were in short supply. The reason I pushed for the passage of the CHIPS and Science Act was because I knew we could turn things around. I've never been more optimistic about America than I have been the last several years, and I mean that sincerely. Not just here in Michigan, but all over the country. Semiconductor companies are investing literally several $100 billion over the next 10 years. Several $100 billion. The Field of Dreams right outside of Columbus, Ohio. 13,000 employees, 5,000 full-time. You don't need a college degree for 80% of the jobs there, and the average salary is $126,000. Look, a record amount of money to bring chip production back home. That's what that legislation did. We're bringing other key parts of the supply chain back to America as well. Think about it. 10 years ago, how many of you knew what the hell a supply chain was? No, I'm serious. It's a phrase when I started talking about supply chain, people are going, supply. No reason why they should have been. It's not because they weren't smart. We didn't have to rely on the rest of the world. We led the world. And because of the IBW and I got elected, we're going to lead it again. I mean it. Companies in every part of this country are expanding factories, building new ones to make electric vehicle batteries and chargers, creating thousands of jobs in the process. Folks, where is it written that America will not lead the world in manufacturing again? Where is that written? Now the United States has a top destination for companies across the globe looking to make investments in manufacturing again. They see what I see, what you see. We have world-class, high-skilled, highly committed workers. Union workers are the most highly trained, highly skilled workers in the entire world. That's not a good joke. That's a fact. That's a fact. Or they're building these factories. They're working in them as well. This wasn't built. This was here. But many of the other places where these investments are taking place for semiconductors are building from scratch. Factories are going to make a big difference. And now, I know many of you who are watching at home are like the folks I grew up with in Scranton and Pennsylvania and Claymont, Delaware. You felt left out for a long time. You used to be really thriving economies. The economy left you behind. The industry that's rapidly changing. You were left out. I understand it. My family understands it. That's why when Cole died in Scranton, we moved down to Claymont, Delaware, which is a steel town. Used to have thousands of workers, 6,000 steel workers. They're all gone now. Delaware used to have the largest percentage of auto workers of any state in the nation. The largest General Motors plant outside of, they're all gone. It's gone. But hear me, we're going to leave nobody behind this time around. Nobody. We're going to make sure all American workers with college degrees and without college degrees are prepared to compete with anyone in the world. We're working with companies and community colleges, technical schools, union-led apprentice training programs to make that happen. In fact, a few months ago, I announced a $52 million grant from the American Rescue Plan, which we passed 20 months ago with the help of your congressional leaders here today. It's a partnership right here in Michigan, including the Big Three and the United Auto Workers, to train our workers, upgrade our factories for the electric vehicle revolution. You know, we were talking on the way up in the plane. We had a little event that your congressman came to. I put together in the South Lawn of the White House. In the process, I had the CEOs of all American auto companies. And Mary Barra, the chairman of General Motors, was suing the state of California because they had a higher air quality standard than any other state. And he's arguing it couldn't be higher than the national standard. And we had a little talk. I'm not saying she did this because of our talk, but I asked her what was going on. And about 2 weeks later, she gave me a call. She said, I dropped the suit against California, and I commit to you, we're going to go all electric at General Motors. Every other auto company did the same thing. They all stepped up. So just like over the last century, American workers built carburetors, now American workers are going to build vehicles, batteries, and a new clean energy economy. My approach to building the economy of the future is working because of the strong support of your delegation. Our economy grew at 2.6% the last quarter, while inflation started to slow and unemployment stayed low. Here's what that means for folks here at home. We've added jobs every single month of my presidency, 10 million total new jobs, more than any other administration in history in the first 20 months. More than 735,000 of them manufacturing jobs. Exports are up. And I mean this, we're making things here in America, as I said earlier, and we're shipping them overseas instead of shipping jobs overseas. Look, like we've been doing this for much too long. Like we were doing before I got elected president. Inflation at the grocery stores, thank God, beginning to slow. Prices for things like clothes, television, and appliances are going down. That's good news for the holiday season. Earlier this month, we saw that the growth price in businesses pay for goods and services is also down. And here's the really good news. They're not down enough in Michigan, but gas prices are down back to where they were before Russia invaded Ukraine. They've dropped $1.50 from their peak this summer, and in Michigan, they dropped $1.60 from their peak this summer. If you're a Michigan family with 2 cars, you're saving an average of $170 a month compared to what you were paying in the summer. That's real money. And across the country, the common price at the pump is $2.99 a gallon. It's much higher here. And the prices continue to go down. This isn't accidental. We've been on this for months. Remember, I got criticized in the face of Putin using energy as a weapon. I took some decisive action. I ordered the largest ever release from the Petroleum Reserve, 180 million barrels of oil. And I rallied our international partners to come up with their fair share as well. That helped put downward pressure on price because we were producing more gasoline. That helped stabilize crude oil markets and reduce prices at the pump. Now, I've been calling on energy companies who had the biggest years they've ever had in all of their history to begin to pass on those savings to the American people at the pump, or they're going to be coming to them. And while these prices are lower, they're not low enough. I continue to call on the producers to invest their record profits in America for Americans. In America, we can do 2 things at the same time. We can increase production and lower prices for American consumers and businesses in the short term while accelerating our investment in transition to a clean energy future.